On January 20th, 2025, as Donald Trump's inaugural address was winding down, he suddenly turned to a topic that caught many Americans by surprise.
And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
This unexpected focus on a waterway that most Americans haven't thought about in decades left many wondering why Trump would make the Panama Canal such a priority so early in his second term. But Trump's claims about the canal weren't new. In the weeks before his inauguration, at rallies and press conferences, he had repeatedly talked about the canal, suggesting he might force Panama to surrender control and even refusing to rule out military action. And by April 2025, Trump signed key agreements with Panama to reassert American influence over the canal. So, what's driving Trump's intense focus on this 50-mile waterway? Looking at Trump's statements about the Panama Canal, it's clear there's more behind his obsession than what he's saying publicly. His complaints about Panama overcharging American ships aren't really supported by anything. The canal charges all nations the same based on ship size, not nationality. And his most dramatic claim that China is operating the canal is simply wrong. So, why is Trump so fixated on the Panama Canal? For over a century, American ships had to sail all the way around South America just to get from one coast to the other, so the US saw a chance to build a shortcut through Panama. In 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt helped Panama break away from Colombia, and in exchange, Panama gave the US complete control over a 10-mile strip to build the canal. American engineers finished the massive project by 1914, creating locks that could lift entire ships over Panama's mountains. For the next 85 years, America ran the canal zone like its own colony, cutting straight through Panama, and you can imagine how Panamanians felt about having their country split in half by foreign control. This couldn't last forever, and in 1964, riots broke out that killed 26 people. When Jimmy Carter became president, he faced an impossible choice. He could either keep the canal and turn all of Latin America against America, or give it away and face outrage back home. Even though 75% of Americans were against it, Carter signed the treaties in 1977 to hand it back. Reagan called it a betrayal, but Carter thought it was necessary. This is the foolish gift Trump wants to take back. When Panama took over in 1999, lots of Americans thought it would be terrible because people said Panama couldn't handle something this complex and the canal would fall apart. They were completely wrong. Under Panama's control, the canal makes nearly $5 billion every year. Ships pay based on their size and cargo, not which country they're from. So when Trump says Panama is overcharging American ships, that's just not how it works. But what if Trump actually tried to take back the Panama Canal? Well, the consequences would be massive. The US would be breaking treaties America signed in 1977 that the whole world recognizes, and Panama could take America to international courts, though enforcing anything against America gets complicated. The damage to America's relationships would be huge. Panama would immediately cut ties with the USA. Every other Latin American country would side with Panama, and even America's closest allies would probably oppose this move, making the USA look like a bully on the world stage. What's ironic about all of this is that Trump's goal of stopping Chinese influence would probably just backfire because China could just position itself as Panama's defender, actually strengthening their position in Latin America instead of weakening it. And physically controlling the canal? That creates major problems. Any military action risks killing civilians, especially since the canal runs right by Panama City with over 1 million people, so an American-controlled canal zone would be surrounded by millions of angry Panamanians. America would probably face a resistance movement and need troops there permanently. There's a historical lesson here. In 1956, when Egypt took control of the Suez Canal, Britain and France tried to take it back by force, and the result was worldwide criticism, economic disaster, and an embarrassing retreat that basically marked the end of Britain as a world power. America could face something similar with the Panama Canal. So Trump claims China is operating the Panama Canal, and that's just not true. The canal is run by the Panama Canal Authority, which is a Panamanian government agency, but China has been quietly increasing its presence around the canal in ways that should actually worry Americans. Here's how China got in. They control the key ports at both ends of the canal through a company called Hutchison Port Holdings. This Hong Kong-based company operates the port of Balboa on the Pacific side and the port of Cristobal on the Atlantic side, and these ports handle all the loading and unloading for ships using the canal. Since China passed its national security law, these Hong Kong companies are really just extensions of Beijing now. The ports don't control which ships can use the canal, but they give China a front row seat to all canal traffic and a physical presence at both ends. China's interest in Panama has exploded over the past decade. In 2017, Panama ditched Taiwan and established relations with mainland China instead. Then soon after, Panama became the first Latin American country to join China's massive Belt and Road Initiative. China has been taking advantage while the USA wasn't paying attention to Latin America. The region used to be seen as America's backyard, but US focus shifted elsewhere, so as American companies lost interest in Panama, China stepped right in. When Panama finished expanding the canal in 2016, it was built entirely by European companies, not American ones, and the first ship through the expanded canal? Chinese. That was celebrated as a propaganda victory in China, but barely noticed here in America. China saw their opening and went big. In 2019, they announced a $900 million investment to develop a port at Colón that would handle an extra 2.5 million containers yearly and be the first to accommodate the massive new ships using the expanded canal. China also planned a high-speed rail line and a new embassy on islands where every ship passing through the canal would see the Chinese flag. This is classic China. They do this everywhere, buying up ports around the world. A Council on Foreign Relations study tracked hundreds of locations where China has gained control or influence over port facilities, and these ports let China monitor other countries' shipping, protect their trade routes, and potentially project military power. With 95% of China's exports traveling by sea, these investments help China control global shipping. China's business with Latin America has absolutely exploded, from basically nothing in 2000 to almost $500 billion today. That's like a 40 times increase in just over 2 decades, and China figured Panama could be their main distribution center for the entire region. But here's the thing, the United States still has serious leverage. Under US pressure, Panama cancelled China's embassy plans, the high-speed rail project, and Chinese involvement in the Colón port. Then most recently, in early 2025, Panama formally left China's Belt and Road Initiative and promised to review the contracts of those Hong Kong companies running the 2 biggest ports. Despite all of China's massive investments and influence campaigns, Panamanians themselves remain skeptical. A recent poll showed 68% of Panamanians consider the Chinese government untrustworthy, while another survey found 62% of Panamanians weren't even aware of major Chinese investments in their country. Panama's President Molino has been described as very pro-American and wants to push Chinese influence out of his country. And that government audit of the Chinese company found they allegedly owe Panama $1.2 billion, which undermines Chinese credibility even more. Look, the Panama Canal shows how much relationships between countries have changed over the past century. It started as America flexing its power, became this huge independent struggle, and now it's actually a pretty successful Panamanian operation. But Trump's obsession with the canal isn't just talk anymore. Those April 2025 agreements with Panama brought back enhanced security cooperation, and US troops are now stationed around the waterway again. While officially respecting Panama's control over the canal itself, these moves basically give America significant influence over this critical trade route again, and China is not happy about it. What this shows is Trump going for specific wins rather than just trying to seize the whole canal. He's avoiding breaking treaties directly, but the US has still managed to get enhanced security cooperation and influence back. Panama is still defending its sovereignty over the canal, which creates this ongoing tension as both countries figure out this complicated relationship.